here. Now, I may be considered an outlaw in these here parts by certain folks, you know, the sheriff and I don't get along that well. But, let's face it, who calls the shots? But one thing I do have is respect for some of the heroes we have in these parts. And believe me, we got a lot of heroes here in these here parts. We're going to bring one of them out now. He is a veteran of the war, so please put your hands together and show some respect for Sergeant William Harvey Carney.
Well, as my esteemed host has said, my name is William Harvey Carney. I was a sergeant in the Great Civil War. I'm here to tell you my story about my time in that dreaded war. You see, the Army saw fit to award me what is known as the Medal of Honor. And from what I understand, I am the first black man to receive that honor. Of course, I have not actually received the medal as of yet. But I'm here to talk more about who I am and where I come from. You see, my daddy was from Virginia. He was a slave. As a matter of fact, my entire family was born into slavery. We traveled up here to the Northeast to New Bedford to buy our way out of slavery, but it was not easy. My pappy had to work on a whaling ship, you see, because at the time, and I believe that is still the case, that all sorts of folks, all sorts of men work in the whaling business, you see. And you see that they didn't care much about the color of a man's skin as long as you could work like Hades, you see. But my story starts when I had realized that it was my sovereign duty to fight for the cause of my people. You see, there were many folks at the time, still at the time, that was still trapped by slavery. A few years ago, a gentleman that apparently I knew from some time ago had come up and actually found me. His man, let's see, his name was Jenkins. Caleb Jenkins said he was a newspaper man. He came up to write about me. Didn't quite understand that. But you see, I knew Mr. Jenkins much before the time he became a newspaper man. See, he was with the 100th New York during the time I was with the Massachusetts 54th Colored Regiment. Have you heard of that regiment? The Massachusetts 54th? You see, it was a unique regiment because it was the first, and from what I understand, the only colored regiment in the United States Army. It's not an easy time for us. But we were glad. We were very, very glad because we had a time, we had a chance to prove that we were more than men. You see, back then, men like Jenkins would refer to black men or coloreds as no better than digging ditches and hauling luggage or digging ditches, you see. Not much better use of that than that. But you see, I was unusual because I could read. You see, I was a ministry student. I was going to go into the ministry. My mama said that I could preach loud enough to wake the dead. So I decided to go into the ministry, but you see, I never quite made it. I had a problem. My people were not free, you see. But my problem was twofold, because as a man of God, at least an aspiring man of God, I had a choice to make. You see, the Bible says that thou shalt not kill, but at the same time it also says that a man must beat his swords, his plowshares into swords, to take up the fight against injustice. So when they formed the Massachusetts 54th, I decided to enlist. But I still had that dilemma. The dilemma of the Holy Word or the rifle. Well, you see, they passed out those rifles, and I took mine. Mr. Jenkins was an interesting fellow. You see, he, well, there's no nice way to say it. The man abused me while we were serving together. You see, he was a northerner, but didn't have much use for the colored man, you see. Well, that man could sure raunch up some names, though. We spent our time training, drilling, those endless drills. You know? We were looking to prove ourselves, to prove our mettle, to prove that we could fight for our own freedom. But it took time for them to let us fight for ourselves. We were still considered as mules, lugging baggage, hauling things around and digging ditches. See, at some point in time, there would come that moment where we would prove ourselves, but we didn't know when. Apparently, Mr. Jenkins, over the time that, those years that he, after we both served in that war, apparently he, I guess he got some education, because he realized that what he had, or how he had treated me, what those things he had said to me, were that form of abuse. So I guess he came up to find me, not just to tell my story, but to find some type of absolution. We all look for absolution in the same way, or in our own way, I should say. But I still had my dilemma. Do I follow the word, or do I go to war? That was quite a dilemma. Quite a situation I found myself in. But God, His ways are mysterious. And somehow, He would find a way for me to do both.